I love my off-road stuff. I love my side-by-side. I love tearing it up. I used to have a giant 85-kilo dog. I like guns. I like this lifestyle.
You're like Toys R Us for adults. It's probably a bad example because I think Toys R Us went out of business.
The parents were doing whatever. The kids were all off, just having a ball. It was the old school family fun of just being in the outdoors.
The Outer Side podcast wouldn't be possible without the support of our awesome sponsors, Tie Gear, Dog and Gun Coffee, and Max Tracks. The best way that you can support the show is to support the brands that support us. To keep your adventure secured, head to tiegear.com to check out their awesome range of quality camping accessories, including guy ropes, screw and tent pegs, tie downs, and heaps more. Just because you're off-grid doesn't mean you have to drink bad coffee. Check out dogandguncoffee.com to grab yourself some bloody good coffee, ready for adventure. When you're out and about exploring in your four-wheel drive, there's no substitute for safe and effective recovery gear. Head to maxtrax.com.au to shop their huge range of recovery gear, including recovery tracks, kinetic ropes, soft shackles, and more. G'day and welcome to the Outer Side. I'm Tony, and in this episode, I'm joined by Robyn Van Ysseldyk, the owner of Sutto's Powersports. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you. Good job on the surname.
Hey, we got there. Otherwise, it was just going to be Robyn V if I didn't get it right the first time. We're going to get straight into it with the fast five. So I will ask you 5 questions, and you will answer with the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
What was your dream job as a kid?
Teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you pursue that dream?
No.
Probably for the best. You're surrounded by much cooler toys here than in school. You get a free plane ticket to anywhere in the world. Where are you going?
Ooh. Oh God, there's so many places.
What's the first one?
Oh, I think Europe.
That's not really a country.
Oh, okay.
I didn't say country, but
hey, geography's not my strong
Europe
point.
is not like a destination that you can go to.
Within Europe, I would probably end up going, I think, Norway, Scandinavia type.
Yeah, okay, that checks out.
Yep.
Why? This is now no longer the fast five because I'm asking follow-up questions.
That's all right. I've never been there, always wanted to. I think experiencing, like the midnight sun, all that. Yeah, I don't know, just somewhere different, really different. And you can also do all the glacier driving.
Arctic trucks.
Yep. Oh, there you go. There's the answer. Iceland.
Yeah.
Let's narrow that down.
Wait, hang on. No, isn't it Greenland's where the ice is and Iceland's where the,
I think it's very green, but there's still glaciers.
All right.
Yeah.
Accepted. Favorite band or music artist?
At the moment, I'm really on, you love it, country. Chris Stapleton.
I don't even know who that is, but I knew what you were going to say.
Yeah.
If you could have an unlimited supply of one thing, what would it be?
Time. That wasn't the first answer that came to mind.
What was the first answer?
It was money, but I actually think that's not fair because time, I have more ability to generate out of that resource.
Okay, good. I agree, but I went over this with the Overland Travellers last year. Unlimited time, but you age.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't take that then.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a point that
you'd have to pause your age, but
Yes.
then do you pause it now or do you go back?
Or what if it was unlimited time and then, yes, you had the resource. So if I could still generate same incomes
Yes.
and be using my time now to be doing those things, or the things that I wanted to explore and everything, then maybe that way. Technicality?
Yeah. Because having heaps of time is great, but if you're old and decrepit, then what's the point?
Yeah, then you're just waiting to expire. That's
Anyway, we're getting very dark very quickly
deep.
here. And what would you eat for your last meal?
So my mum makes this meal called, I don't know why it's called this, Dutch roast beef. Anyway, it's basically like a top side of beef cooked in butter. And it's you cook it really rare, slice it super thin. It's just the best meal ever. And it's our family celebration meal that we haven't actually had in a while. So she owes
So
us
it's as much about the experience as the food. Is that fair to say?
I think so. It's the nostalgia around it. It's been
Yeah.
a big thing in our family for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, it's one of those things I think my dad's mum taught her how to cook it. And she has, much to Nick's disappointment, not taught me yet how to cook it.
Oh, yeah. You haven't earned your stripes.
I'm still no, Mum's still here and good, so I'll let her take that.
Yeah, but it's got to get written down.
Yeah, I think I've watched her many times. I reckon I could almost pull it off.
See, my grandmother has been dead a long time, but she was a phenomenal cook and nothing got written down. And so all of those recipes are just gone.
Yeah,
my
mum
gone with her.
Yeah, Mum writes it all down. I'm a good cook. I don't think I'm as good as my mum, but I can.
Yeah, you can figure it out.
I've got it all written down. She's got this book. I know.
You
If
know
anything
what-
happens one day, it's the red book in the kitchen. Yeah, I know. So that stuff's preserved in our family.
But that sort of stuff I think is so good, because that I feel is like one of those things that's kind of getting lost with technology.
Yeah,
Like the
absolutely.
family tradition stuff.
Yeah. And my mum even has like the beautiful handwriting, the old school, like lovely handwriting that mine does not remotely, look anywhere.
Life before computers, when you actually had to be able to write.
100%. So yeah, she's got this beautiful cursive of all those recipes.
Yeah. So again, nostalgia.
Yes.
Right. So where do we start with you? Let's talk about how the hell you ended up owning a Powersports business, but we'll go right back. Where did your love of the outdoors come from? Was it something that you did when you were a youngster?
Yeah, so our family grew up camping, four-wheel driving. My dad worked very hard his whole life, and the biggest thing is back in the day when him and mum had their first business, they sold the house, they had enough money to literally, pay rent, pay for the groceries, pay for the car, and the car was a Hilux back then from memory. I still remember the photos of it, and we had a camper trailer, and that's what we could do for holidays at the time. So it started with that, and I just grew up with it my whole life.
Is it fair to say that camping was accessible back then? Like it was a cheaper form of holiday than
100%.
Going overseas or any of that sort of stuff?
Absolutely, and because he was self-employed, like we've never been the family that has really long family holidays. It was never like that for us. So because he was self-employed, it was you could get away for a weekend, and that would be enough to fill the cup, whatever it was. And so that was accessible to us, both time and affordability.
Yeah, definitely. And so that was something you did pretty frequently as a youngster?
Yeah, I have a lot of memories. And then back in the day, the Jamborees. So
Like scout jamborees?
No, so like the four-wheel drive jamborees. They were, I was very young. I would have been, I think, we're talking 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago, even longer. They used to have these jamborees, which were like a bit of a gymkhana type thing. You'd have like a few different events, but everyone would come together, different sites all across the country. And that was it was the biggest party. But, they'd also do the mud drags. It was the old school stuff. The old school stuff before the insurance ruined it for everyone.
Yes. I was going to say before the fun police arrived and ruined everything.
100%. And it was the old school fun. And I vividly remember those. I remember we were one place and there was, I don't know what it was. They must have had this area that they've created with all the big tractor tires. I remember crawling all over those and coming back, my mum dragging me back, going, we got to scrub you, and you were just playing. It was like, the parents were doing whatever, the kids were all off, just having a ball. It was the old school family fun of just being in the outdoors with a bit of the motors were in there, so the cars and everything.
Yeah.
Best type of fun.
And was that something that you continued to do as you got older, or did you kind of step away from it? Did life take you in different paths and then you came back?
I definitely stepped away for a period through teens, like later teens.
Yep.
And then when I met my now husband, we started camping again and everything.
Yep.
So my husband's Nick, OFFROAD.
Yep.
So obviously that's a huge part of our lifestyle. I remember when we first went on a trip and we were camping in a tent, and my parents were like, I don't think she's going to cope with this.
Oh, really?
I was fine.
Yeah. You're like, I'm built for this.
Yeah.
Don't you remember when we used to do this?
100%. So I think just because we hadn't done it in a while, I guess life got in the way. But started on it again, and it was, we always have a joke that I fell in love with Nick for his cars.
Yep.
Yeah, so if he ever got rid of the cool cars, that'd be it, would be over. Lucky he's still got them, so.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think the cool cars are going to slow down anytime soon. I think that's going to keep going.
Yep.
So if you want to check out the episode I did with Nick, that was quite some time ago now. I have no idea which episode number it was, but I'll throw it on the screen and you can check it out. I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
One of the first, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was like 18 months ago. So that seems to be a pretty common trend in terms of the guests I have on, that they start out camping as a kid, they do it with their family, and then as they get older into the teens, they kind of go and explore other things, and then often will find their way back to it as they get older, which I think makes sense, right? You got to go do whatever teenagers do, but then once you get old enough to start to buy cool cars, and you start looking for that escape again.
Absolutely. And I think you come with your own freedom and accessibility, right, at some point. So when you have your license and those interests start defining where you want to go and what you're wanting to do on your weekends, because your weekends are yours, it's not necessarily dictated by family commitments.
Yep.
You might get rid of the sport side of things in your life, or it might not be as big a factor or whatever it is, which, you know, heaps of kids do weekend sport when they're at school, whatever it is. I think that then it shifts and changes again.
Or, like in my case, you break your body so badly you can no longer play sports, and then you go deep into the motorsport.
But ironically, see, this is the thing, deep into the motorsport, but with what we do, so much of the motorsport, you need your body. So any of this stuff, right? Like it's still,
I don't muck around with two-wheel things.
Yeah.
I know
There's an art in
I
it.
know my
I don't have that art.
limitations. No. Balance is not a strong point for me, so I stay away from the two-wheel things. As much as I think they're awesome, I'll end up way more broken on two wheels. So from your early experiences in the outdoors, and obviously being around a bit of motorsport, to wanting to be a teacher, and then subsequently ending up here, what were the steps in between? Because I feel like there might have been a few.
There was. So I was a very big nerd in school, right?
Yep.
I had my friends, I had my group, but I loved school. I loved learning, reading, academia, absolutely. Went to uni after school, did business and psychology at uni, ended up working in my dad's family business, so supermarket industry. I then went back to uni and did a master's in labour law and relations. So like I said, I love learning. I really enjoyed it. Always thought I'd end up in like HR or probably more industrial relations. I loved the really meaty side of it.
Yep.
I loved like the negotiation with the union, because we had our own enterprise agreements and everything in that supermarket. Absolutely loved all that. But this is what we did on the weekends, right? So I think the exposure that I had with Nick and with my dad and everything. So fun fact, the only reason I know Nick is because he was dad's mechanic when he was an apprentice. So there was all that relativity there. But it's what we did on weekends. Eventually it came to the point that the family business was being sold, and it was like, what are we going to do next? I certainly had the offer of a cushy corporate-ish style job in the retail HR group manager type thing with the group buying us out. And then my brother came to me and was like, you're going to be miserable in 6 months, come and do this instead.
Oh, really?
And so he was one of the best customers of Sutto's Powersports. Came in every year, bought a new dirt bike. He's KTM lover, has been for many, many years. Every year bought a new dirt bike and had a really good relationship with Sutto, so the original owner. And I think it came about that Sutto had indicated that he was ready to move on from the industry, just as the changeover was happening with our other business, or the previous business, Dad's business. And that was it. He, Mal jumped on it and found the opportunity, and I wasn't part of the negotiation, nothing.
Yeah.
He just was like, come and do this with me.
Yeah, right.
And then I said, all right, let's give it a go.
That's a pretty massive move from like buying a few dirt bikes to buying the shop that sells you the dirt bikes.
So what happened is because Dad was selling off his business, there was the question of what do we do next? And my brother had been in that business for pretty much his entire working life. So he knew retail back to front. By the time we were talking about this, I think I was 27, 28, and I had worked in the supermarket since I was 19. So I knew retail, but I obviously had the education behind me as well. So I had the option, if I wanted to go into a corporate world or into the HR type thing or what I'd studied, I 100% could have done that. But we had the opportunity to apply the retail knowledge that we had gained over many years in a very difficult industry into something we love.
Yeah.
And that was the appeal of it. We were very green. We look back and there are moments that I don't know how we got through and what you learn about an industry. But we knew the construct of retail. We knew the construct of how business worked. We had, as my brother called it to me the other day, our dad conditioned us.
Yep.
He conditioned us for the toughest business conditions.
Yep.
And like I said, that supermarket industry was brutal.
Well, FMCG as a whole is brutal.
It is brutal. And when you're an independent in it, it is doubly brutal. I think by the time Dad sold that supermarket, I think there was, I don't know if it was 7 or 9 competing supermarkets between Coles, Woolies, Aldi within a 10K radius. So and we weren't a corner store. So the supermarket was a 3,500 square metre supermarket.
Yeah, right.
150 staff, full butcher, full deli, everything. So a full bakery. It was a machine. It was its own machine of what you had to manage. And the thing with those businesses is you learn the discipline of processes. And if you don't have the processes right, it can go bad very quickly. Whether it's...
Well, particularly when you're dealing with fresh food, right?
Absolutely. So as we said, the food's rotting the moment it's coming in because it's deteriorating. The quality is always deteriorating. So you needed to have very good stock control. You needed to have good cash flow. You needed to have very good operational standards. Like I said, the processes were really important. And in that style of business, because they called it like a big box, so you got this big box retail theory where, you know, you had to have a certain amount of volume, you had very low margin, and you had to run on the smell of an oily rag. So you had to have this formula right. And if you got it right, it could be profitable.
Yep.
If you got it wrong, it could can you very quickly. So we learnt a lot there, and then wanted to apply it to this. There are obviously some things that cut across retail-wise. There are some things that are very different, but the reality behind it is with the way our business works, things end up on floor plan. You can end up with interest payments. It's the same thing. We call it like the product rotting in a sense, but what it is realistically is it's actually losing value by the day. So if you are ending up with interest payments and whatnot on these products, it can cripple you really quickly. And the industry has seen it cripple people badly, particularly in the last couple of years post-COVID.
Caravan comes to mind.
100%. But then I think caravan industry has, depending on the supplier or the manufacturer, some can be floor planned, some can't as well. So when they end up with like the progress payment style that they do, which we've all heard about recently, I think that's one way of not having things on a floor plan. And I think there's a bit more security in how something like this works when it comes to floor planning companies versus the caravan industry. I don't know a heap about it, but I think there's a different take on it for sure.
So for the, I don't want to say uneducated, for people that are not familiar with what you're talking about, do you want to explain what floor plan is in this industry?
Yeah, if a manufacturer invoices us $10,000 for a bike and we're selling it for 11, it's not for 20, trust me. Everyone thinks there's heaps, but it's not that. Manufacturer invoices you, it comes in at $10,000, it sits on a floor plan. It's financed essentially. And depending on what's happening with that manufacturer at the time, they will give you a period of interest-free where they are subsidising that interest essentially. So you might go, 60 days or 90 days, or hey, if you buy 10 of these, 20 of these, we're going to give you extended floor plan terms because you're committing, they're able to invoice you, they're getting that cash flow, but you're having it sit there and taking the gamble or the risk or the calculated risk on, am I going to sell that in time to avoid that? So that's where you need
the stock turn to keep it...
Exactly.
Keep it out of the interest period.
Exactly. And, you know, people don't realise we're not talking your home loan interest rate of 5%. Well double that. It's expensive. So if you get it wrong, it can go bad.
Yeah, and I mean, for anyone listening here, I don't even want to guesstimate how much stock you've got sitting on the floor, and I don't expect you to tell me, but there would be, 100 motorbikes here, give or take?
And that's what's on the floor, it's not what's sitting in crates as well.
Yeah, so you got 100 odd bikes, heaps of jet skis, a few side-by-sides, some mowers, and then all the accessories. So there's a significant stock holding. So I suppose one of the biggest challenges in this industry would be your forecasting, right? Like, how do you forecast what you're going to sell and then commit to the floor plan?
Well, this is one of the biggest things that we probably your biggest challenge is your manufacturer will forecast what they believe is happening, and they have a whole bunch of very detailed data that we don't have access to. I would definitely be very conservative in what we forecast. And watching what's happening in the market. So if I say I sold 100 bikes in this calendar year, am I going to sell 100 more? Oh, interest rates look like they're going to go up. Oh, we're seeing that the cost of living is out of control still. Oh, interest rates might have come down. We might get a bit more consumer confidence. You're trying to forecast, and it can be that far in advance that you're forecasting what's going on. And committing to orders, they can be up to 8-9 months in advance. So if it's not right, it can cripple you.
Is that production lead time stuff, or that's just how far in advance you've got to give a forecast to the manufacturer?
I think for them, it's production lead time, part of their planning and whatnot, but every manufacturer is different. And we literally, because we sell European bikes. We sell Japanese bikes. We sell North American jet skis and side-by-side. We sell North American Toros. They all have a different way of doing it. And depending on what cycle they're in or how they're probably crafting their business at the time, would start to dictate who becomes your preferred OEM at the time as to where the pressures come from. So it can be a point of contention, to put it very diplomatically.
Yeah, I get it. So how many parallels are there between the FMCG supermarket trade and what you're doing now?
More than you think. So we don't have as, well, actually, no, that's not, I was going to say we don't have as many lines, but we do in spare parts. So,
Because you've got to carry parts for what, 7 years, or, I mean, the manufacturer does.
Yes.
And so you've got sales and service here as well. So
Yes.
there's two distinct parts of the business, right?
Yes, absolutely. So when it comes to the workshop, it's wildly different. The workshop is not something I ever had exposure to, but it's my most absolutely loved part of the business. I'm really fond of my workshop. I'm really fond of my team in there. We've built it over the years, and it has a very different approach, but it's very process-based, which, yes, came from fast-moving consumer goods, but different style processes. When you're managing spare parts, that is many lines. So, we had, I think it was 300,000 in the supermarket, huge amount of lines in that area. So that's probably got the closest similarities. And the reality behind it is the old retail saying 80% of the sales come from 20% of the lines. It still holds true
Always.
here.
Yep.
And it's very, very true. Even with your bikes or vehicles, like it's a retail theory to live and die by, I believe. And if you can get your stock right, if you can get your operating expenses right, then yes, you can make a good go of it. I think you don't deal with advocacy as much as the general public. So we would have people coming into that supermarket, they got to eat.
Yep.
They're coming back. If you can be competitive on price and do all the right things and make sure your food's fresh and everything, they will come back. Here, when people don't have the money, they don't have the money. Yes, there's finance, all those types of things, but when there isn't consumer confidence, you know about it.
You're like Toys R Us for adults. It's probably a bad example because I think Toys R Us went out of business, but whatever the current toy shop is of choice, but for adults. So you'd be almost like the canary in the coal mine. So when the economy starts to slow down and people start to count pennies, you'd be one of the first ones that's just a purely discretionary spend, right?
100%. And that
within reason. I know there are some commercial applications for these products, but for the vast majority, they're toys, right?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people like to pull parallels with automotive and power sports. And there are parallels, but there are also some very, very key differences, because buying a car that's your commuter car that gets you from point A to point B is very different to, you can buy a commuter bike, but that bike's still got a little bit of flair about it that is for you. And then your dirt bike it's your toy on the weekend, for example, or if you're using your side-by-side to go hunting, or you're out on your SeaDoo on the weekend, like they are pure discretionary, pure fun. If I go without it, probably not going to like it, but I'm still going to eat and the roof's still going to be over my head.
And I can still get to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't ask me how I know this, but trying to write things like jet skis and dirt bikes off on tax is slightly more challenging than writing off, for example, a dual cab four-wheel drive ute that could be a tradie vehicle during the week and could also be used to go camping on the weekends.
Absolutely. It is, it's not part of the repertoire, really.
No.
The mowers are pretty good for that. But
my accountant explicitly said to me, if there's one thing that he does not want me to do, it's to buy a boat and try and claim it on tax. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. He goes, that's a guaranteed way to get audited if you claim that a boat is being used. Unless you work on the water, you can't get away with that. 100%. I imagine most of what I'm looking at here would fall into that category as well.
Your accountant's very wise.
My accountant is very, I won't say that. Anyway, so how long have you guys been running Suttos now?
9 years.
Oh, that's right. You had your 9th birthday last week.
Yes, 9 years,
so
almost a decade.
You would have been finding your feet, getting everything sorted, and then a small event known as COVID happened.
Yes.
Was that good for your business or bad?
So we went through a boom after the initial scare, I guess you could describe it as. So to start with, I mean, God, didn't we all, like, we all thought the world was going to end, right?
Well, that's
You
what
didn't
we're
know
being
what was
told,
going to,
yeah.
And the anxiety around the unknown was horrendous. And when you are in a business that has decent size overheads and has floor plans, and you know that, it was terrifying. All the manufacturers stopped production for a period, particularly because we've got a lot of European, Japanese, North American manufacturers. So, where we were pretty insulated, every supplier wasn't. And then all of a sudden, because all the restrictions went in place and people weren't traveling, they very quickly turned around to be this, we have this money that we can't spend on that overseas trip. What are we going to do with it? So our industry went through the biggest boom of its time. And I really hope that it's unprecedented, and I never want it to happen again because of the circumstances under what that happened. It was awful running a business in that, and with your staff.
Uncertainty, yeah. The
uncertainty, and then coming to work every day and having, I think at the time we had 12 or 13 staff. They didn't know every day whether they would have a job. And I would stand there in front of them being like, we go to work and we do what we can and that's it. That was really difficult. I will never forget what that meant, or the responsibility and the heaviness you felt having a team that you wanted to make sure that business could keep going. So yeah, obviously I didn't want to go broke, but
you got 13 mouths to feed.
Yeah, 100%.
More than 13 because you've got 13.
Lots of families off that as well. Right. Absolutely. So that was a really big factor in it. But we went through a boom. They'd shut manufacturing, so then there was a stock shortage, and the classic happened. Supply and demand. The demand went up, the supply wasn't there. And so it was a very profitable period for these businesses. The thing I think that was difficult about it all was when we had second round. So our shop was shut for 3.5 months. So the front doors of this showroom that we pay, what we pay for to have it. So this business is 2,000 square meters, right? The showroom represents at least half of that. I think we're about 1,200 square meters, including the spare parts area. That was not open. Our workshop was able to function, and we were able to do all the work that we could in there, and we could do click and collect. So someone could ring up and buy a bike.
We just park it out the front.
Collect it, and we do
park it out the front and throw the keys at them.
Yeah. We I'll never forget the click and collect. So we were, I don't know if I'm meant to say this, but we were relaxed in that time. We're a very 2,000 square meters with 15 of us here. We weren't up in each other's space, right? So we knew that the chances of having a check being done on the business, depending on where you were, Penrith never got it, but there were places that they had the police turning up, going, why are you here? What's going on? Blah, blah. And we had every right to be here, but we were trying to, not make it that we were sitting there in our 200 meters of space each, wearing a mask the whole time, right? So you're trying to be lax with it. We had a code word, because if the police turned up, everyone knew, here's the code word. And I'll never forget, a police officer rocked up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but he just wanted his parts.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't...
He was breaking the law as well, probably.
He didn't ring up and pre-order. He's standing at the counter, and I'm hovering with my spare parts manager. He's like, what can I help you with, mate? He's like, oh, I just need to pick up this and this and this for my jet ski. And we're like, righto, have you done an order? He's like, nah. And we're like, that's fine. So we're like, are you baiting us?
Yeah. Is this a sting operation? It's so bizarre to talk about this now. And I'm sure some people are like, why are you talking about that? But for anyone that was involved in the outdoors industry in that time, it changed the whole outdoors industry, in my opinion anyway. It absolutely resulted in a boom. I think it brought a lot of demand forward. But it also brought lots of new entrants to the category. So the people that would go to Europe for a holiday couldn't do that and had spare money. And I think we all underestimated how much money Australians spend on leaving the country every year.
Yeah. 100%.
Because all of that money got injected into the economy, right? And thankfully for you and I, because we operate in the outdoors industry, it was very lucrative. And I think that new entrant that we saw come to the market, a lot of them stayed. I don't think everyone that bought a caravan was like, all right, well, back to Europe and flogged the van. I don't think that happened at all.
No, so it was one of the strategies that was discussed in amongst the manufacturers was about consumer engagement during that COVID hangover, trying to get people to hold on to their vehicles and what you can do with it. And and creating more opportunity for them to keep using them once, I guess, the novelty had worn off when you had the temptation that you could go back overseas or whatever it was. So that was a strategy within itself, and there's a lot of community stuff that these manufacturers, all of them, do, which is fantastic to keep people engaged. And it's a lot of that exclusive, like you've got to have this bike or this brand or whatever it is to be part of it. And I love it. Like, I think it's great because I guess it's rewarding people for their commitment to the brand. They're trying to commit something back. I think it went a little bit to the wayside, but it seems to be coming back again and rearing again because, well, we're in a tougher time now, right? So now they're still wanting to try and create as much engagement as possible and really push people to being back in this industry and still loving it and still engaged in it.
I think it makes sense because it feeds into that base level human psychology of tribalism and belonging and sense of community and all of those things. Yeah. So it's the same in the four-wheel drive community, right? We gravitate towards people who have similar interests and like the same vehicles and like the same terrain, and I'm sure it's the same in this community. As I said, I'm not a bike guy. I'd stay well away from them because I don't trust myself, but I definitely have an appreciation for it. And my mates who ride bikes, that's just what they do, right? Yep. That's their life, and they'll have a particular colour of brand that they buy, and that is what they buy, and you won't see them on anything else, right?
100%. The brand loyalty is some of the strongest I've ever come across. I think in like the caravan industry, you see a bit of it. Obviously with cars, like I'm a Toyota person.
Apparently I'm sponsored by Toyota. That's what the audience keeps claiming. I'm waiting for the check, but it'd be nice.
Yeah, take it.
Yeah, if I could just get a discount on parts, that'd be handy. If I can get like cheap gearboxes, that'd be really, really appropriate for me.
Nick can get cheap tail shafts, I think is what.
Yeah, no, I don't need tail shafts. I need gearboxes.
Yep.
Anyway, enough about that. So within this, I guess there's multiple categories that you deal with, but the one that seems like a bit of an odd one out is the mowers.
Yep.
So actually, I was just at the pub on Saturday night and I was watching mower racing in America. So that is technically a power sport, but the ones that you have here don't appear to be of the racing variety. No. So why mowers in a power sports shop?
So that was a weird one. We had a guy walk in that was looking for a new dealer, and his name was Mark. He was a fantastic rep, actually. He was great. So he walked in and he was like, would you be interested in this? And my brother's like, I hate mowing my lawn. And he's just like, no.
How fast does it go?
He was just like, I think he put his card in the bin. Like, he was just like, what? So this is the power of the network, right? And it is so powerful. And I am a social person. I'm a chatter, right? Much like yourself. Yep.
That's why I do this.
So yes, no, I'm a chatter, and the more that you talk to people, the more just the interesting things you find out about this world. So back in those days, I was a Polaris dealer. We won Dealer of the Year. So we had the highest volume sales in the country. And I had this woman come up to me with her husband, sit down next to me. I believe they're from Cairns. And she was like, hi, I thought I'd come and chat to you because I figured there's something I can learn off you if you're doing this, which I thought was the most beautiful thing. And this woman was
really nice.
I was 30 at the time, and this woman would have been in her 40? I don't know. She was an older lady. Like, they were an older couple, right?
That was very diplomatic. She was older than 40. Anyway, maybe she just spent a lot of time in the sun.
I don't know. She was from Cairns. Like, it's very sunny up there.
It checks out, yeah. She's probably not watching this, so if you are, get in the comments.
And she came over and asked me that question, and we were just having a chat, and I asked her what was her business, what did she sell? Toro mowers. And I was like, oh yeah. And then Mal tells me Toro came in the bin, and I'm like, hang on a second, I know someone that sells Toro mowers, let me ring them. So I rung up this woman, and she's gone, oh, we love selling Toro mowers, it's amazing, it's a really good complementary product. And so she went through it, and I went back to Mal and I said, maybe you should look at that again, because this woman spoke really highly of it. And he's like, right, okay. So he goes back and looks at it, and then we were like, oh, well, let's
So
try.
what's the connection? Is it kids with dirt bikes that live on acreage properties
I guess
and
it's
need
that.
a mower?
Well,
Is
so
it
our
that?
location, Penrith, right?
Yep.
Obviously, so we end up with a lot of like that hobby farm. You get a bit of acreage around the area.
Mulgara and all that.
Exactly, yeah. And you go all the way up to the Hawkesbury. We have access to all of that area, and that's where our customer base comes from, like that really greater Western Sydney type
Yep.
area. Even down to Campbelltown, all of that. So we have access to that. That's where people come to come to Sutto. It's a destination store. And yeah, like the reality is people rock in and they're going to go buy the next dirt bike or whatever it is, but they come from a bit of land, or even if they've got quarter acre, half acre, they just go, oh, yeah, I need a mower, or oh, I've been looking at a new one, or and Toro has a great reputation. Like I said, American mower company and very high quality, and they have a great reputation. And to be fair, we didn't really. That was one of the decisions. You didn't know what you were getting yourself into. You just were like, all right, well, let's try it and see how that works. And it's been a really, really good contributor to our business.
Oh, true.
And as much as it's not the don't have the passion for cutting grass, it turns out that people need to cut their grass.
I was going to say, that's the necessity part bleeding into
It
the
is,
business,
100%.
right?
And there's a bit of commercial stuff in there. But during COVID, everyone looked after their grass, didn't they?
I landscaped my entire property during COVID. I started by putting in a side gate, and then next minute I'd torn up the entire property and landscaped it over a period of about 4 months because I had nothing else to do.
Yep.
Because I was one of those lucky ones that lived in Blacktown Council, so we had like actual military driving around, yelling at you if you were walking the dog with your partner, and so we just stayed at home. I had a mad time. I got heaps done during COVID.
Well, didn't we all?
Yeah.
Like there was a bit of a slower pace in life then, right? You didn't have so many commitments to get to.
Yeah, and you weren't travelling, so you had spare money to spend on toys, and yeah, it was kind of cool. I don't know. I wouldn't like it to happen again, but there was definitely upside to it.
I think there was an upside in terms of it gave everyone a little bit of time to reset in life, but I don't think any of us liked the circumstances under which that happened. That was awful.
Do you reckon that, say the media tomorrow goes, oh, someone ate a bat or whatever animal that allegedly got eaten, you've all got to stay at home. Do you reckon anyone would actually comply this time? Or do you think everyone would go, yeah, nah, we're done with that, champ?
I actually think there'd be a real big division. So you know how there was a bit of a division last time? I reckon there would be the people that engage in it big time, because some people just...
Like being told what to do.
Well, some people do. Some people need that in life. And I don't want to be the person to judge it because it's not me, but that's some people. They're okay with, oh, this is the extent? Okay. And I'm good with that.
Tell me what to do for my own good, yeah.
Right. Yes. Some people thrive on that. It's not what I thrive on.
Yeah.
I don't like being told what to do. And then there are people that would just turn around and give a big the finger to it because...
I feel like there'd be more people on that side.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like
I said, I think the division, I think it would be... I actually think there'd be like almost like a civil unrest around that because it would be so polarised this time after seeing the result. Because the being unsure about it was what made you go, oh, I'll err on the side of caution or not, whichever way you were going, But
then when it all just turned out to kind of be BS and didn't really have any effect on anything and we all got it anyway.
Yep. Where did it end up?
So I think about this a lot. This is not like a COVID episode, but I'm intrigued by this. Again, the psychology of it. I feel like, regardless, I don't think it was some big conspiracy. I really don't. But I wonder then if something actually really bad happened and everyone's like, oh, we're not falling for that again. And then
So like we all turn into zombies.
I mean, hopefully. if something's going to go down, it's got to be something fun, right?
Is that fun? I don't know if that's fun.
Apocalypse, bring it on. I reckon I could last a little while.
Well, that's not to get political. It's all going to be a bit harder now because don't have as many guns, do we?
Well, for the moment we do. The legislation has passed, but it has not been enacted, so we've still got plenty of guns. Also, fun fact on that very topic. Did you see the statement from Firearms Registry saying that they couldn't keep up with the admin because they'd been inundated with firearms license applications?
I wouldn't be surprised.
So they got like 31,000 applications for either new licenses or changes to license categorisation because they announced that legislation.
Yep.
So there's going to be more guns than before that.
So I have a thing where my belief with this is, and
also zombies don't die when you shoot them, so you got to like stab them or.
Right.
I think that's the
I'll
deal.
have to brush up on my zombie law.
Watch more zombie movies. Yeah.
So I always, and we had the application and it didn't go through, actually wanted to open a hunting store in conjunction with Sutto's. And before what just happened, we were actually having this discussion, second level, about potentially going down that path. And everything's happened, and that's obviously, I looked at that and gone, oh, this is not a nice place to be in. So if you are into hunting, please go support your local gun shop right now, because they are all suffering really badly, and it's awful. It is absolutely awful, because they're just trying to feed their families too, and they're doing an honest job, and they're getting treated as criminals for it. I hate that. It breaks my heart.
Further up the chain, though, exactly what you just said, there are some bloody good firearms manufacturers in Australia, and overnight, the particular style of firearm they make gets banned, and they're like, oh, cool, so now what do we do, and what about the people we employ, and what about our contributions to tax revenue, and
100%.
blah, blah, blah. It's probably a good segue into something that I did want to talk to you about. Obviously, anyone who's been following this for a little while knows that I'm very passionate about public land access, and that is something that would undoubtedly have a significant impact on your business as well. So how does that go in terms of the sort of bikes that you sell? And I mean, you've got a pretty wide variety. There's road bikes, adventure bikes, enduro stuff. How much of it is public land versus private land versus racing? Is there much of a sort of spread, or is it predominantly in one category?
So particularly in our Euro bikes, we are very dirt orientated.
So that's KTM, Husky.
KTM, Husky, GasGas.
Oh, yep.
They are all dirt orientated. Kawasaki has a dirt range as well. They are, in Australia, higher sellers of the road range. KTM also has, or KTM and Husky really have adventure bikes. They're road registered though, so I kind of put them in their own category. And
then like super motard and stuff as well.
And don't get me wrong, your enduro bikes, they're road registered as well, so you can have access and legally be in national park and whatnot. 80% of what we sell in that range, and this store was built on KTM, realistically. It's been a KTM store since 06, 07, I think it is, when it wasn't at this site. So this is what we are built on. So 80% of the bikes that we sell in that brand will be an enduro or motocross. Like the enduro, it must be at least 70%. So it's huge. And we have, as my brother would say, the best dirt bike riding in the world up at Lithgow. And it's been taken away. And well, yet again, I find that really heartbreaking, right? So, you know how I said I used to go camping with my parents? There are places that my parents tell me that I've seen when I was young that I'll never get to see now. And I just think it's disgraceful. And I also think it's disgraceful that there are places that I have gone that my son will never get to see. And I don't really understand what the theory around that is, and why why the government realistically wants to take that away. It just, I get what their reasonings are, questionable reasonings are, but why want to take something that is, we're so privileged to have in this country. We have the most beautiful country, and people don't want you to be able to see it, enjoy it, access it. I believe there is something around your ability to be in that land and to use it. You are more likely to want to protect it and to look after it and advocate for it when you have exposure to it. And I think that there's a real issue with the next generation not ever knowing how good it can be and knowing what they should advocate for in a sense, because they won't get to see it.
And I mean, we've seen so much get taken away in the last 10, 20, 30 years. I went to a four-wheel drive club recently, the Land Rover Club of Newcastle, and I was like, why are you inviting me? I tease Land Rovers and their owners relentlessly. But turns out the Land Rover Club, most of them don't own Land Rovers. But they asked me to come and speak to their members about the public land access issues, the fight, the inquiry, all that sort of stuff. And it was really interesting because one of the guys from the club gave me, sorry, I tell a lie, it wasn't one of the guys, it was one of the girls, their president, gave me these old documents from the 70s that one of their members had put together, and it was fighting with the government about public land access. And she said, I thought you'd be interested in this. And I read it, and it was like reading the stuff that I'm talking about now.
Yep.
It's been going on for 50 years of people fighting with the government trying to restrict access to public land for whatever reason that they can come up with. But at the base level, it's the community being told that they're not allowed to access public land for whatever reason. And I don't care what anyone says. It's not about rubbish. It's not about track erosion or any of that crap. At the moment, it's about carbon. That's what it's really about.
Yeah.
And the more you look at this stuff and the more reading you do, the more you realise it's about carbon offsets and carbon credits. And if they lock up land, then they can trade it with polluters, and the polluters will pay heaps of money to the government in exchange for being allowed to pollute. And that's where, once you start reading that, you go, oh, okay, that makes sense. But that's just the current situation. What about 50 years ago, before carbon offsets were invented? It's really bizarre to me that there just seems to have been this ongoing fight for forever about access to public land.
And if it was happening, so you're saying like the 70s, at what point did that change and become an issue? Because you look through the ages, so the 1900s, the 20th century, and you went through world wars, which was all about fighting for your land, right? Like for your country. We went through the industrialization periods, which was about making it easier to arguably travel across the country, or accessibility. It made the world smaller, I guess you could say. We went through the Great Depression, which was, I guess, about survival at that point in time. And then what? Like, was it that we got to a point we didn't have to fight for something, or, you know, like, what is it that got us to that point? Because something significantly has changed in that, and I just like, it's beyond me. I understand there's always going to be a political reason, right? I guess it's a resource.
The common thread is money.
Well, it's a resource, and maybe it can be traded for money, or whatever you know, when it comes to carbon offset and polluters and whatnot.
That's just a theory, by the way. I have no qualifications in this matter, but all of the pieces seem to fall into place. And you mentioned Lithgow, right? I learned that's where I cut my teeth wheeling, was up in Lithgow. It was the most accessible place from Sydney. You could boot up there on a Friday night and go break your car and camp up there with 500 of your closest mates. And there were negative aspects to that, but what was proposed by Dominic Perrottet about four-wheel drive loop tracks and all this ecotourism, and then the management plan for the park gets released, and it's like, oh, actually, no, we're closing all the vehicular-based tracks. We don't want any motorsport going on in there. And then more recently, there's a proposal out for glamping. So all amongst those big, beautiful stone pagodas that are older than time itself, they're now proposing that there will be glamping, and they're going to build all this infrastructure there and allow rich people to go and camp there. So it's got nothing to do with protecting biodiversity, which is what they sell as the reason for it, right?
I often feel, and I've felt it more heavily, I think, now than ever before, and I guess it's probably only getting heavier, and maybe it's as you get older, or it is just the way society's changing. The frustration that I feel that person in government that ends up with that power, their internal or internalized values get to judge what I choose to do in my free time. So I recently had a conversation with someone, and like, this is quite political, around gun laws. And they said to me, and they're someone that lives in the city, and they said to me, I just don't understand why people in Sydney need to have so many guns. Why do you need that many? And I just turned around and I said, do you have a problem with the amount of guns I have? Like, oh, it's a bit different. I said, no, it's not. I live in Sydney Metro. He's like, oh, but you've got access to land because we have property out back. And I'm like, no, it's not different. Why are you making a judgment call on me? And I said, so I currently employ 16 people. I pay payroll tax. I pay personal tax. I believe I have a contribution to this world, or to this community, in terms of the fact that I employ local families. I am a independent local business. I'm highly educated, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I've got an education. I think that I am a contributor. I don't take from the government. I don't ever intend to. It's my goal in life to make sure I don't have to rely on them realistically. And that's probably just a little bit of an independence. I don't like relying on anyone.
Yep.
But I am that person. And I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a good contributor with what I do. Why does that person get to make the judgment call on me? That's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the government feels to be doing at the moment for whatever motive, whether it is their personal or whether it's the trade-off on the political thing to get this over here, which is generally still a personal motivation, I guess, in that sense. Why do they get to judge me? And that's really, like, it actually weighs quite heavily because when people turn around and say to you, oh, you don't care what anyone else thinks. I get it. I love what I do. Like,
yes,
you can well and truly call me a redneck, a bogan, whatever you want to call me.
Great.
And I don't see it as an insult. I mean, I love my off-road stuff. I love my side-by-side. I love tearing it up. I used to have a giant 85-kilo dog. I like guns. Like, I like this lifestyle. You can't insult me for being like, you like these things. Like, yeah, I do. I
like
own
being
it.
called a redneck. I find it. I'm like, thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's the thing. Like, you don't value it. But if you want to go, and this is not, if you want to go dress up as a cat and go to Comic-Con or whatever it is you want to do, go do it. If that's you,
probably unlikely that I'll do that anytime soon.
Not you.
But thank you for your approval in advance.
Yeah, but like, if you want to go do it, go do it. If I want to go do this where I'm not harming anyone else, and like I said, it creates more appreciation, I'd happily pay for access and make sure that things are looked after and managed. I would love to be part of that type. I would love that, where you know that things are managed better and it's kept for the next generation. I would love to be part of that. But why do I get the judgment call? Because I don't want to be like everyone else? And that's really hard pill to swallow this day and age. And then what happens, which I think is actually a pretty beautiful byproduct of it, is the connection that you then have with the people that share those values. It runs so deep because you feel so, like, I guess criminalized is the right word. It's how it feels. And so the people that you find, and this business is great for it because our customers are like-minded.
Oh yeah, of course.
But the people that you find, you're same level. And like, we get a lot of people in this business that come in and they're self-employed, work hard, play hard. You know, we get all the tradesmen, like, and it's just, I hope that when they come here, they don't feel judged. They feel included, right?
Yeah.
Like that this is your safe place. You are safe to express that opinion. You are safe to say that, you're like, oh, I think I'm going to lose a gun, and it's okay. Like, you can come here and say that and be part of that. And that is quite literally the best part of this business, is that we come across the people that just share that deep value. And I just don't know where it's going to go moving forward. If you keep judging me on that, when do I get ostracized for that?
Fully agree with you, but when does what we want to do come into it? Because at the moment it feels, and I made this comment in a recent podcast, if you enjoy any particular pursuit, don't get me involved in it, because it seems that whatever I get involved in is under pressure. And I definitely don't think I'm unique in that, because even the audience for this show, I know that lots of guys and girls ride bikes, they hunt, they fish, they like four-wheel drives, all that stuff. It's all that outdoors community. But when you've got politicians ramming through firearms legislation and they don't know what they're talking about, like the belt-fed shotgun thing is just like, it's dumb, right? Anyone who knows anything about firearms goes, what are you talking about? But the fact that they can write that into legislation, they don't know what they're talking about, yet they still have the power to affect people's lives and livelihoods. And there's the hobbyist side of it, but there's also the people that make a living from it. And it's legal. So overnight they can just, with a stroke of a pen, make something illegal. What's to stop them just saying, you can't drive a four-wheel drive in the bush anymore? Or you can't ride a dirt bike in the bush anymore. Why not? Oh, well, because X, Y, and Z, and they live in the inner city and they don't care because they don't do it and their friends don't do it, and they go, well, we can just do that, get us some political points. I think that's the bit that really has motivated me to get involved in it, because I can't sit back and watch it happen. I want my daughter to experience everything I've been able to experience. If my daughter says, hey, you know what, I want to become a feral animal controller and go become a pro shooter, go, do it. I want our kids to be able to have those opportunities, and it feels like there's just this constant very slow squeeze on lots of the things that we like doing in the outdoors community.
Now this is where it gets like, I feel like, not conspiracy, but like...
All right, I shall don my tinfoil hat.
No, very
I'm here for it, let's go.
It's not conspiracy, it's very like the conservative side of things. But is it because at the end of the day, the people that don't like the individualistic world are easy to control? And I hate going to, but...
Yes.
Well, that's where I think it is. But I also, like, when did that become the preferential way of the world? You know, experiencing like, oh, we've driven an hour up to Bilpin to sip some cider and this is like the biggest adventure of our year or something like that. Like, that is such a great area for so many reasons. Why can't it be that for so many reasons? So when did it become that we all had to be the same?
Well, it's control, right? You can't do this, why not? Because we said so.
Yep.
Because of whatever reason that we come up with. And I think that's the frustrating part, because I can't speak for everybody, but I know my family, we like going into the bush to escape.
Yep.
It's different. It's different from our day to day. And for a lot of people, they don't care because they don't want to do that. They're like, what? You want to go sleep in the bush on the ground? What is wrong with you? I want us to go stay in a 5-star hotel. It's like, keep your hotel, man. I'd rather go stay out there, but we are still in the minority.
Yeah, we are. And I think the other thing is that needs to start being looked at is you take this away. So there is, there's probably some woo-woo theory about this, but like when you end up in the bush, like I'll sit there and I'm like, I literally feel like I'm being regenerated. Like I have a very high pressure job. I take on a lot of stress. I need an outlet. And like with literally in conversations at home recently after having a child and the fact that that disappears for a bit, I've just put my foot down and said, we need to change back to where we're at. He's 3 now. We can do more of that. I need more of this again because it is what makes me achieve what I want to achieve in this business. And I have high drive, high motivation. I take on a lot of responsibility, but I need the adventure. I need the outlet. It is who I am. It's inherent within me. And the moment that you end up, maybe it's being away from the phone. Maybe it's being the fact that you are in the outdoors. Maybe it's the better air. I don't know what it is, but there is something about it that genuinely recharges you. And at what point does someone get to dictate to me why I'm getting recharged when that's not okay? It's okay. I'm not hurting anyone by doing it. I'm really not.
Okay, so the counter argument to that, and I've had this argument about 8,000 times on the internet in the last 18 months. Oh, well, why don't you just walk then?
In the bush?
Yeah, that's the alternative is that, oh, why do you need to drive in there? Why do you need to use a noisy dirt bike? And it comes back to, because I want to, right?
Yep.
It's just personal choice. And then there's a whole other aspect to it, which thankfully neither of us have this issue, but I've had people say to me, well, I'm disabled. I can't walk, but I can drive. I've got a modified vehicle that allows me to drive into the bush and I can experience that. So then it's like, well, oh, so if you can't hike, you're not welcome. If you choose a dirt bike, you're not welcome because they're noisy, or you can't drive a 4-wheel drive in there because you might run over a frog or something. Like, where does the line get drawn? And I suppose that's the bit that concerns me, and I'm sure it concerns you because you have a passion for it, but you also have a business that relies on access to that bush.
16 staff that rely on people being able to do this as well. You know, it's not lost on us.
It's so much broader, right? Like I don't even know what the outdoors industry is worth in Australia, but it's billions and billions of dollars, right? Yep. And I often wonder, okay, cool, so they restrict jet skis everywhere. Sometimes for good reason, sometimes not.
Oh, look, every sport has its problem.
Yeah, humans.
100%.
But, you know, dirt bikes, even side-by-sides, to a lesser extent, but, you know, they're used for hunting and all those sorts of things. You start to take all of those away. I wonder, what do we do? What are we supposed to do with our time?
Sip lattes.
Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant, so that won't work for me.
Well, like I like my coffee, but...
Yeah, but you can drink coffee in the bush as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. Like, what are you supposed to do? Do you just go to the pub? Is that better? Because I know what I'd rather be doing, and it's not sitting in a poke room in a pub.
100%. And that's a thing. It's funny because, you know the saying, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. We get it. You see the dynamic that can come in when you got a male and female come in like partners. And you can see whether or not it's approved of by the female or not. It's a thing. And I've always said to my brother, I said, don't you ignore that woman that's with, like, she can make or break the call whether he gets to buy that bike sometimes. And that's just reality. And there are things that I have watched and seen unfold with people that don't appreciate that lifestyle. And I'm like, that person could be at the pub. They could be, like, drinking. They could be gambling. And I don't have anything, against going to the pub and having a drink. We don't care, but yeah, like, we go to the fruit shop. And my son, it's next door to the pub, and we go on a Friday night because it's got a play area. And my son goes in the fruit shop. We go to the pub, Mum, and I'm like, okay, I sound like a wino, thanks, kid.
I don't even drink, and we go to the pub because, again, play equipment, right?
Yes. So we go and do our thing. But there are much worse things in life that you could be doing. And then the next thing that I think becomes an issue is if you go and pull all the outdoor community together, so the hikers, the mountain bikers, the dirt bike riders, the caravanners.
Can we leave them out of it?
The caravanners? They need access to this world, though.
They need access.
We're not making judgment calls.
They need access to the big four. Yeah, come on. You know I love you, caravanners.
Have you met Nick Finch and where he will take a caravan?
Yeah, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Also one of our great mutual friends makes a living selling caravans. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But no, you're right. Sorry.
So yeah,
the
side
whole
by side,
outdoor community,
everyone,
right?
boating, fishing, the individual groups within that can turn on each other. We see it on the rivers. For example, you have a SeaDoo, a personal watercraft, and then you'll have the wake boats, and then you'll have the fishing boats. And everyone has a thing about each person, right?
Yeah, I'm a fisher and I hate wake boats and jet skis because they're noisy and they are annoying.
And they create a whole bunch of wake, and then it makes your boat move.
But then if I'm on one of those other devices, I'm like, this is sick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when did we get to the point that we had no tolerance for anyone else's love as well?
Oh, that's a deep question. I don't know the answer to that.
But I think that's part of it, is like you have this outdoor community that have their specific loves, and then we all need to support each other's plight on that, because when one goes, it's one that's gone that makes everyone over here ultimately weaker. And I think that's
You're spot on. And I think, unfortunately, it comes back to what we spoke about earlier with the base human psychology around tribalism, right? Oh, well, I care about this because this is what I'm into and everybody else is irrelevant. But absolutely, when it comes to public land access and public waterway access as well, it's a little bit harder to put a gate on a waterway, but it absolutely is heavily restricted and is under attack from various areas.
Huge with sea, like it's on
PWCs, marine parks for fishing restrictions and all that sort of stuff. And what I'd love to see is somehow trying to bring the outdoors community together. I don't want everyone to be best mates with everyone, but just to have an appreciation for it.
An appreciation, and I think the tolerance is there as well, right? I think like there is an element where it's okay that that's not your thing, but you can understand the love of something. You understand the passion of it, right?
I saw that recently with the firearms stuff after Bondi, right? To their credit, the vast majority of the firearms community, which is very fragmented and loves fighting with each other politically, all came together. Didn't really achieve anything. The legislation got rammed through, but with something as public as that occurring where it did, it was going to happen, right? But I was watching four-wheel drivers go, yeah, well, of course you should take their guns away. I'm like, hang on a minute, you're the one that was whinging about not being able to modify your car a certain way or not being able to access the bush here. This is the same thing. It's government overreach. It's government legislation impacting our freedom to make our own decisions. So even if you don't shoot, that's fine, but have an appreciation for people who do. Because at a base level, it's the same as what you were talking about. Time in nature, resets, being away from the phone, all that sort of stuff. It's the same reason that we do it, regardless of the particular vehicle or the activity that we do. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'd love to see some more solidarity and support across the outdoors community, because you combine all of those user groups. The hikers aren't going to get involved, let me tell you. But aside from them, everybody else, it's a huge voter base. And that's ultimately the only way that we can affect any change, is to threaten politicians' seats. Don't threaten politicians, threaten their seat. Because everything
Use
that they
your
do... Yeah, and I think, I've never been a political person. The last 18 months I have. But it's because I can see what's happening, and I can see that if we all sit back and go, someone else will do it, or she'll be right, like, we will lose everything.
And I think Australians are very guilty of the "she'll be right, mate," and sometimes
And she will not, in fact, be right, mate.
it will not be okay. Sometimes it can be positive. So we find in business when you can go through a bit of economic turmoil, or there's a loss of consumer confidence when like wars break out. Well, there's quite a few times. I think Australians recover pretty quickly from that because they kind of go, it didn't end my world today. I should be right.
Get on with it, yeah.
I think that happens. We can recover quickly on some things, but we can be too relaxed with others, right? And Americans, and I know everyone has an opinion about America, where it's at, whatever is happening with it, but Americans don't let go of their, like, they fight. They fight. And you can have an opinion about America, you can have an opinion about how it is, but I look at those people and they just go, you want to take something off me? No. And I have a lot of respect for that. I think that's to have that passion and conviction in your life is so important.
Well, it's bred into them, right? And the education, it's the land of the free, right?
Yes.
And it's the firearms thing. I'm not suggesting that America's got it right with firearms. I think maybe there's a few too many guns getting around, and they have a mental health issue rather than a gun issue, in my personal opinion. But arguably, having access to high-powered semi-automatic rifles and also having a mental health problem is not a good mix. We can all agree on that.
No.
But recently, last year, there was a senator in the US that proposed to sell off a whole bunch of BLM land. And BLM land is Bureau of Land Management, set aside for public recreation. And they were going to, there was a whole spin, as there always is, but basically we were going to sell it off to developers. And the entire outdoors community in America mobilized. Like everybody, hunters, four-wheel drivers, quad bike riders, you name it. And they all just went, no, you're not taking this land. And the amount of noise, and I'm sitting here in Australia, so I'm disconnected from it, but I could just see this groundswell. And then the senator's like, nah, actually, it was a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Backed away slowly.
Now, the fight's not over. I saw a video just last week of another proposal of thousands of miles of trails that they just want to lock up. So this is a global issue, but what I can't get to and what I want to understand is what is the driver? Now, lots of people will get in the comments and say it's Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2050 and the WEF and all of that sort of stuff. Maybe it is, but I don't understand why governments want to restrict access to public land for outdoor recreation. I don't understand.
No, and I am right there with you because I just can't see the good reason for it. I think it helps people more than anything. Isn't the government meant to help and better its people?
I don't think so. I think the government wants us to rely on them.
I agree with that. In an idealistic world, aren't they supposed to want the best for their people?
Want, like,
Isn't that the point of being a public servant? You serve the public. Did you hear the stats on the public servant thing the other day?
I don't want to know. How many people work for the government now?
For every 100 people in Australia, 17 work for the government.
It's wild, and it's growing.
It is wild.
I think it's like the starting point of socialism. Anyway, gotta be careful how far I go with this, but yeah, it is really frustrating, I think, for all of us that love getting outside and getting amongst it. And the intrinsic and extrinsic benefits, health, physical, mental, all of it, right? We run the risk of losing it.
Absolutely.
But as long as people like you are still here and selling toys that need to be used in public places, then I think we're in a good spot. What do you think the future looks like for you with this business? Do you see a long and prosperous future? Do you think you're going to bring in, I don't know, motorized shopping trolleys? What's the next pivot?
We've grown a lot in the last couple of years. So we've brought on a lot of different brands that we didn't used to have. Right now, current strategy, pause, take stock, make sure that we maximize everything that we have here. I feel like the future of retail is actually a really interesting topic, particularly big box retail, metro cities. It's getting harder. It is absolutely getting harder. In Sydney, there have been a lot of dealerships that have gone bust lately in the last 12 to 18 months. And I don't think it's the end. I think things aren't going to get any easier. And I honestly actually don't know where this world will end up. We are one of the, I think in New South Wales, we're actually the largest dealership in New South Wales. I'm pretty sure we are actually. There are bigger ones down in Victoria, maybe in Brisbane and whatnot, but in New South Wales, I think we are. And like I said, we love what we do, but it's not getting easier. So to operate the business, it's getting harder. So operating costs keep going up. With inflation, you can't help that. Different challenges are being thrown at you. So, it's getting harder to use your Sea-Doo in most places. Side-by-sides, you need to have access to private property because we don't have rec roads and whatnot for them.
Stupid.
Yeah. There are...
That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that are throwing challenges, but we have a lot of fantastic OEMs that are trying to get behind these because they're starting to see what the real impact is. It is going to be a interesting, probably at least 12 months to see where it ends up because we are coming off the COVID hangover, as everyone says. So a lot of these businesses did struggle. Don't get me wrong, we struggled through it too, where there was overproduction once the demand dropped. That got really dangerous. Can-Ams had its own share of issues and close to bankruptcy. There's a lot. There are businesses that have diversified that have gone, nah, let's get rid of the diversification and focus on our core. Because they've realised we need to put everything into this to make sure we're sustainable and whatnot. So it's an interesting playing field as to where this is going to go. I think part of it is dictated through the where commercial property goes because your rent's obviously going to be a huge thing based on the size of these businesses and the space that you need and the storage that you need and whatnot. So it's a bit of watch this space to see what actually happens to this industry because my hope for the future about more independence, I actually don't know if it's going to be there. It really worries me in that sense actually. And the big players, they have a place in the market. We all have, there's always a big player. I think it'd be really cool to see some independence multi-dealership out there. I'm not saying I'm doing that, but I'm just saying I would love to see like some more groups kind of be created in that sense. But I think with this business, you need to have a lot of discipline about what formula you put together to be able to ensure your survival and sustainability because it's a very cyclical industry. So you got to be able to weather the bad times and the good times come and then you got to average out where it realistically is. And if we can, our biggest goal in this business is to stay sustainable, make the right decisions moving forward, not the stuff that's going to sap it now, not the stuff that is easy now. Maybe it's a harder decision. Maybe it's a change of brand. We've done that. It's not an easy process to go through, and particularly when you're championing a product to your customers. So you're taking your customer on that journey with you when you change. But Sutto's as an institution, I think, will be here for a very, very long time because it has had that reputation for that off-road outdoor lifestyle for so long. And the intention is that we keep down that track of perpetuating the best lifestyle you can have.
Nice. My last question for you. You started your life with a passion for the outdoors and motorsport, and now you've been doing it for 9 years on the other side of the fence as a business owner. Do you still have the same passion for it? I do.
The thing so people always say, what do they say? Oh, don't work with what you love or whatever it is. I still love this lifestyle. I would actually say that having a child has actually shifted it more than anything. When you have a child, your priorities and focus 100%, whether you want it to or not, shifts and changes, right? And we have a very busy lifestyle with 2 businesses and a child. So we're we're both self-employed. It's really tough. But the reality behind it is we're at the point that we're getting back to that lifestyle, and I am determined to be engaged with that lifestyle and bring my son along for the journey. That's what I want. Or sometimes not. Last weekend I went jet skiing on my own. It was great. Did a ride down the Murray River, 400 Ks over the weekend. It was epic. Yeah, absolutely epic. But the lifestyle, the love's still there. It's just you've got to be able to make sure you can craft your time around it. And as we've gotten further into this business, the boys like to joke that I can be the part-time chick sometimes because I'm not here the same hours I used to do. But I have a lot of my team that worked with me for 9 years, and they handle it for me. So we're really, really fortunate that we're doing that. We can't do the big trip where we go to WA for 3 months. It's not reality for us with the way this business is and the measures you need in it and whatnot, and the things you've got to keep on top of. But we sure as hell try and get into everything that we can, and that is this year. Every month there is an adventure. And that's the commitment for this year. That's 2026.
Is about as good as you can get, I reckon. If you can stick to that and go on an adventure once a month, then you're doing better than most.
Yep.
No, well, good on you. Thanks for your time, Robyn. It's been really interesting to hear more about your story and for you to share so much about what you do here. So I really do appreciate it.
No worries.
If anyone wants to find out more about Sutto's, where do they go?
Sutto's Powersports on Instagram.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Perfect.
Well, thanks again for your time.
No worries.
And we'll see all of you next time on The Outer Side.